Hello, welcome. I first want to say I am just so grateful for all my subscribers that you take the time, watch my videos, you're commenting. I love the comments because it helps me and it helps everybody else in this community. I'm just so grateful for you being here. And for those of you that stroll on by, I'm grateful for you too. I'm sending you love and gratitude as you scroll on by to something else. And for those that stay, I deeply welcome you. I'm deeply grateful. And I hope that what I'm teaching here resonates deeply within you so we can all be part of uplifting the planet in a positive direction. Okay, so I just wanted to thank you. It really means the world to me. So I wanted to tell you that. On to what I'm talking about now today. There's 3 things I want to touch on. There's something that Carl Jung, his an ideology that he stated that really changed my life. So I want you to hear that. The second thing is I want to talk about is, I talk a lot about the divine spark, this creative spark within me. And, I'm getting, what the hell is that? Well, I kind of get that because it's very ethereal. And I've been studying this stuff now for decades. So I use it as a language that I'm very familiar with, and you might not be familiar with it. So I'm going to get into what that is, and I'm going to share an example so it brings it down into your reality so you can help think, oh, that's what that means, because you're probably experiencing it. You just probably weren't relating it to the wording, the languaging that I was using with that. And the third thing I want to talk to, it's very important, is this whole AI thing. And I just want to say, there's a way to approach it that can be actually good for you. And then there's a way to approach it that can actually be detrimental for you and separate you further and further from the divine spark within. So I'm going to get into that, okay? If you don't know me, hello. I'm the founder, creator, and practitioner of spiritual personality typing. What this is a sacred self-identity archetype method that helps you build a harmonious relationship between your personality and your soul, which opens the doorway to your true self, right? The true self is that divine spark within you. We're going to talk about that. So let's get into this. So one of the things Carl Jung, because I study Carl Jung a lot, and I'm trying to constantly read it. I'm not a scholar. I'm not that, so please. But I'd like to read his works, and then as an ENTP, as you know, I look at these patterns and all this stuff, and I take it in and I make it my own. But one of the things he's talked about was, the first half of your life is building. It's an ego journey, and the second half of life is recognizing the soul and having a soulful journey. I 1,000% relate to that. And my thing is, we let the ego lead the first half of our lives, and let's let the soul lead the second half of your life. That's what I'm doing spiritual personality for. I want to help people that want to be on that journey, that soul-fed journey for the second half of their life, to figure out how to do this, how to incorporate it, how to actually get into that soul, because it is ethereal, but there is a way to mine that and unearth that within you. And so you become conscious of it, because once you have this consciousness, awareness, you're awakened to it. You're like, oh, here it is showing up again. It's not going to be a perfect reality, because it's just not, but you're more aware of it. And when you're more aware of it, you're more likely to step into it on a regular basis than not, okay? So my philosophy is the ego led this first half of your life. Let's let the spirit lead the second half of your life. And so there's this breaking point. And my breaking point is midlife, of kind of like, okay, cliche, but it's true. It was a tsunami. And it wasn't that I didn't expect the tsunami. I didn't expect the unpredictability of it and the size of what I went through, the challenges that I went through, because it touched on every single thing in my life. It tore up everything in my life, right? And it taught me to question everything in my life, it's really scary, honestly, because you feel like, oh my God, I'm hanging out to dry and I see no end in sight, and there's all this unknown ahead of me, and what I'm seeing behind me, or what was, doesn't look good either. So what the hell? So you're in this kind of like the butterfly, you're in that cocoon mushy state, and you're like, what's going on, right? But as I was navigating this tsunami, I started realizing what I wasn't tapping into was this higher aspect of myself, the soul self. And so I started getting little breadcrumbs, like this is, oh, let's listen, because listening is the gateway to your new beginning. It really is. When you start listening to this soul self within, some people call it the Holy Spirit. Some people I call it divine intelligence, which is, we're all saying the same thing. So there's this higher consciousness that's within you. And once you start relying on that and letting that lead your life, things change, right? What I learned in my tsunami is like, I needed to really get into my truth, get into my vision, that creative spark within me. What was that trying to tell me? And that's part of your soul's blueprint. That's a voice. That's a powerful voice in you that's been drowned out by all the societal conditioning, your family, religion, work, your past experiences, the experiences that you're in now, and your beliefs, social media and all this stuff that bombards you every day and says you need to believe this, you need to believe this. And this is a chain into the AI thing that I'm gonna be talking about. But I had to get really peel back all this stuff. What is mine and what's a false belief? And so through my tsunami, I started figuring out, wow, so there's not just a self-identity, because that is often associated with the ego. There's a sacred self-identity. And when you can harmonize these two, because you still need your ego. I'm on Earth. We're on a dualistic planet. I'm not going to be some monk to sit there and go, ugh. No. Part of the ego, the fundamental aspects, I believe, of the ego is to put you in challenging situations so you can evolve yourself. You can use your spiritual tools to learn, because as you learn, you embrace this wisdom, and as you get older, you teach the wisdom so you can help other people. It's a circle. We're all here for each other. So you start leaning into this spiritual aspect of yourself. And it's delightful because it is unknown, but it's highly imaginative. It's highly creative. And I want to give you a little side note here, and then I'll jump into my experience with this and why I know this is so true for me. There's a lot of experiences I've talked to before about my tsunami and all the miracles that were happening during that time that I finally realized. But when you get into this, it does really hit that creative spark, and it starts opening that spark larger and larger and larger. Because even as a small child, I was always into the unknown and questioning and the spiritual realms, and I knew that there was more to life than just what meets the eye. And my mother was very spiritual, so I kind of had this baked into me. And then going into society, it was conditioned out of me. I was still very intuitive. That's what made me so successful, because I would just use my gut. I'd follow my gut and say, no, that's not going to work. Because I was doing branding and PR and all kind of writing for tourism brands, for, corporate organizations, for mom and pops, which they hit. I did really good in that. I'm not bragging. It's just because that creative spark was in me, was leading me. I'm not going to take credit for that, because that would be an ego thing. And egos don't really do that. They want to say that they do, but they really don't. So anyway, let me show you too how this idea of this creative spark works. Excuse me. So, I've been talking here. I've even mentioned this thing called the unbrand, which I really like, because that's where I came from. I came from this world of agency, the agency world, marketing, branding, PR, and so forth. I really like this. It's the unbrand. And what the unbrand is all about, it's just about showing up in your business 1,000% authentic to who you are. Your values, your beliefs, right? How you operate, who you are, authentically who you are. Show up. Just show. And so I was really into that. I was going down this path because it's what I did in the past, right? That's what I knew. I was still clutching on that. I didn't want to step into that unknown, right? So I was holding on to that because it's easier to hold on to something like that. And so, of course, as you know, I like to go and do these deep dives into like, okay, well, let's look in the past. Let me just do like just a review of what's going on. And so I was walking, and my my spirit, that divine inner spark within me, started speaking. They're like, Nina. I'm like, yep. Because I was asking him, like, am I taking the right steps forward? I was asking him, like, does this sound like something you're excited about? I'm like, well, I'm kind of excited. Well, that's not what I asked. Okay. Well, I'm kind of excited. That's the best I can say. Well, why is that? And so then I needed to start questioning everything. Well, I was kind of excited because it's new, and an ENT personality type likes anything new. But honestly, it was more doing. It was more into that ego lane of my life. I am here now, and I want to be in a more being, a total beingness of myself, and letting that be enough, and letting that show up, and let others learn just from my beingness of what I'm doing as far as my spirit, soul self, not my ego self, not the performing, right? Not the have to, please, not to follow all this conformity, all the conditioning, all the rules. No, no more. Beingness is doing everything on my own terms. So I'm like, oh, because this unbranding was going to go into a book I was writing, and I started writing it. I had an outline and everything. And I did my wordplay. I was doing my outline. I was talking to my editor. Yay, Kayla Davenport. She's on YouTube. I'll put her in the description box because we all have books in us. But no, I was led in a totally different direction. But I'm listening, and guess what? Oh, it's so much easier, and I feel really good about it. Right? And I'll give you a little tease of where I'm going with this. It's a new book, and it's called The Daily Stroll, and it's called Soulful Stepping into Your New Beginning. The title might change a little bit, but it's so much more me and where I am right now. But if I wasn't listening to that creative spark within, I would have just kept on going down this road, and I would have been down this road. Not that it would have been a bad thing, because I would have learned. But then I have to repivot and come all the way back. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm kind of listening up front, right? And so now the time is more precious, obviously, when you get older too. So you really should be listening so you don't take so many wrong turns. And even if you take a wrong turn, you can detour really quick and get back on the path that you need to be on. And I'm going to tell you, there's a really, really, really good video on this. Actually, it's a TED Talk that Elizabeth Gilbert gave like 5 or 6 years ago. And she talks about this creative genius. And in her words, she talks about it as this energy force that comes to you. It's being called to you, and it goes into you. And if you don't catch it, it leaves and goes find somebody else. And I think that's really true. You know, because the unbranding, you'll see it. It'll just land somewhere else because it wasn't for me. Doesn't mean it's not a creative spark for somebody, but it just wasn't my, creative spark. It wasn't the totality of me, right? And my beingness. So it hit, it landed, and now it's off. Now my strolling, and this is what I want to do because I really want to serve, midlifers, and not from like an anti-aging or fashion, none of that stuff. I want to serve, of course, ANCP, but from this authentic being, like your authentic being, and showing you, ooh, let's get into this creative spark of who you are. Let's pull this totally out. Let's align that personality with the soul so that creative spark can speak. And whatever challenges, whatever you need to go through, yay, that's good because it's giving you a roadmap of where your new beginning is going to go. So it starts peeling away, so you don't feel like, oh, this is unknown. No, it's known. You just need to remember it, right? So that's kind of what I went through from the unbranding to the strolling. And that's how it works, right? Now, I've been practicing this for a while, so you're going to have to step into this and really get into this. But when you're true to yourself, and this leads into my AI, I'm going to wrap up after that, but the AI thing is so, so important that you're true to yourself, right? Because I'm thinking from my true self. right? I'm listening. Like, I'm listening to the book thing, like, what's going on, like, what the, right? So I'm listening to that, and I'm like, okay, let's just put this into AI and see, like, how this looks as far as demographics. Is it the right, am I going to reach the right people? And yes, I am. And if you're here and you're not in your midlife yet, which could be anywhere from your 30s on, because younger people are really much more with it than, people in my age, because we weren't born into this. We were born into a much more closed society. You're born in a much more open society. But so if you're here and you're younger, you're just an old soul. Don't worry. You're just ahead of your time. But anyway, so getting into this, I went into AI and I'm like, okay, let's put this in. And I'm like, so I gave it all my language, because I do a lot of word prep, and I gave it all my language, and it just shot out something so generic. I'm like, no, you didn't even use my words. This is just a generic, mundane thing that you picked up from artificial intelligence. So it kind of threw out my divine intelligence and instead replaced it with its artificial intelligence. And I was like, no. So I had to go back and tell it again, use my languaging. So 6 times later, I'm getting closer. But see, that's the main key about this. If you don't understand your true self when you're using these AI models, they're going to model back to you through their artificial intelligence database, which has no emotion, which has no soul, and it's not really thinking. It's pulling data, excuse me, and it can pull a hell of a lot of data quickly, but so can you if you meditate. I'm just saying. But knowing this, like, you really have to know this. And when you're using AI, there's a lot of discernment. Because if you're coming to AI, like if I was coming to AI with this book and saying, well, I kind of want to do this book on this, and this, and I'm not quite sure yet, but I like this, and this. So it's kind of like gray, right? It's going to feed you back what you think you want. But if you don't know, if you're not precise with exactly what you want from your true self, from divine intelligence, not AI intelligence, divine intelligence, you're going to replicate something that's not really true to you. And it's not going to have any soul. It's not going to have emotion. It doesn't really have a consciousness. And you can put it out in the world. I'm not judging. I don't care. You do what you do. But it's not going to resonate. Because humans want human connection. I mean, that's what we're all here for. We're all connected, But our individual spark is what makes these connections so special, right? It makes you so special. A generic AI tool doesn't make you special. Now, if you use the AI tool and you're true to yourself, and I know exactly where I want to go with this. I know. I'm not guessing. I know. So that's why I can go in and go, no, this is wrong. This sounds so generic. I'm like, no, this is not me. This is not what I said. It was talking about anti-aging. I'm like, no, I'm not going there, So that's a really significant and important message that I want you to really take in, is that knowing your true self from a soul fed and led knowingness, from that creative spark, from your soul blueprint that's here to evolve itself, right? And we're not going to know all of it. Trust me. You're not going to go, oh, I know my whole thing. No, because it ekes out little by little. You can't know all of it at once. Your head would explode. So it ekes out little by little. But those little crumbs are the path, right, to your true self. That's what makes this so, oh, my dog came out to shake. That's what makes this so wonderful. It's like you don't have to know it all at once, that's what society said. Know it, you'll be a success, sit at the table. No, let it slowly show up in your life. That's why the book is called Strolling. It's a slow progression. It's a slow process, but little by little. But when you encompass the slow process, you build from those foundations. Instead of thinking you know it all at once, and you haven't built it on a strong foundation of your inner knowingness, it's just going to crumble, right? And so we haven't even seen what AI is going to do yet. And I'm not pro or anti-AI because it's here. And so that does me no good to judge it. All I know is when I need to use it, if I want to use it, how do I need to approach it? So I hope you really enjoy this. I know it was a longer video, but if this resonates with you, please do share it. Please like, please subscribe, do all those fun things that you already know how to do. And if you want to get into this, like with me, I offer like clarity calls. I'm going to start offering walk and talks. They're going to be so much fun. I'm going to go to like a lot of coastal communities here where I live in the South. And like, let's meet up, you know, and let's do a half-day walk and talk where we'll get into it deep, and we'll start getting you into that creative spark and getting you excited about the second half of life, because it's exciting. I no longer ever want to see, you know, the wisdom holders of our society. And no, we're not all wise and smart. I'm not saying that, because there's a ton of young people wise and smart. I'm not talking to the younger people, but maybe I am, and you already are wise and smart, and that's why you're here. Just saying. You know, but we don't want to be, I don't want to be in a home anywhere. You know, I want to die under a tree. I already told my son that. He's like, Mom, you're crazy. I said, I know, but that's just an ENTP. But we need to be here to share our wisdom, to create, and to go through the challenges, create some more, and then start sharing that with groups of people that need us. It doesn't have to be on a stage. You don't need to be in an auditorium. You don't need to be a New York Times bestseller to be an author. Just reach the people that you're meant to reach, because it all echoes out. It all builds slowly, smallly, not this big grandiose thing, but slow, small increments that make an impact. Trust me, you're here to make an impact. Small or large, don't matter. Anyway, so if you want to go down that road with me, the walk and talks, or I do long-term mentoring, like if you're really in a heavy time in your life and you know you need to pivot, but you're like, I don't know how the hell to do this. Because I know for me, I did the gurus, I did the master classes, I sat on a lot of psychiatrist couches. Didn't work for me. It worked a little bit, it helped a little bit, but then I just kind of went back and into my old ways. And I'm like, okay, this stuff's not sticking. Why isn't this sticking? And for me, the missing part was the soul's role in personality typing. Because when you marry the logic, the egoic, with the soul, that's where the dynamics come into play. That's where your true self rises. And that's when stuff really becomes just beautiful. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for coming along and being with me today. And we'll talk soon. All for now, Nina.